Hello, my name is Sally Raymond. I'm 82 years old and I want to talk about awakenings from Alzheimer's. My mother was my teacher on that one. My mother and I had an incredibly close relationship all of our lives. She was 38 when she had me, and she really wanted a baby, and I was that lucky baby. And she taught me that I could trust her completely, and I'd tell her things that I don't think many children would ever tell their parents. And all she'd do is laugh and tell me stories about her childhood. And it just helped us bond in these absolutely amazing ways. And later on in life, I got married at 19, and I was afraid my mother was going to be miserable without me, but actually she was perfectly fine. And that was a great relief for me, but a little, did hurt my ego a little tiny bit because I thought I'd be more important than that, but she was fine without me. But anyway, what would go to call each other, and I'd call her a lot because I needed my mom, and I'd go to dial because at that time it was a rotary phone, and I'd dial the number and put the phone to my ear, and what did I hear? Laughter. No dial tone, no ringing, laughter. And it was my mother's laugh because she had tried to dial me at the exact same moment, and we were connected without a single ring. Happened so often, we just laughed about it, but it was certainly a sign that we were really deeply, deeply connected. So that happened. And then, later on, I had two little babies. I got divorced. I was, um, I was taking care of that, working full time and going to school, and it was really a lot. But mom was also getting older because had had me at 38, so now she was in her 60s, and she got Alzheimer's. And that was really hard, and I ended up having to put her in a facility because I tried to take care of her and it just became impossible. And I tried to take her to find the best place possible, but it's not a great place. It's a warehouse. It's a really awful situation. And it broke my heart, but I had no choice. And at some point, she developed breast cancer, and I took her to her doctor, and he confirmed it. And then right in front of him, I said, "Well, we have to operate." And he turned to me, he said, "Why bother? What's left?" And that just, I was, I couldn't believe it. I yelled back, "I don't want my mother to die of cancer in pain." And so he would have let her go. But I was like, no. So we operated. And here was a woman who couldn't understand that she was having an operation or that she had cancer or anything. But I would be there morning, noon, and night, every single second I could to make sure she was okay. And the more I showed up, the more her Alzheimer's went away. And she would just, her reaction on seeing me every time was like this huge, you know, she couldn't say much, but just the reaction was like very clear. She was just thrilled to see me every time. And I could feel that, she was fine on that other side, but other people didn't see it. And so finally she had to go back to the facility. She had recuperated as much as she could there. And I took her back, and that was really hard because it's such a tough place to be. And then the next thing that happened is I got a call from them saying, "Your mother isn't eating." And so I was like, uh-oh. And it was in the morning. And so I left work and I went down there, and I was like, I can make her eat. And so I sat in front of her, and she had a bowl of oatmeal, and I put the spoon in filled it with oatmeal, and I guided it to her mouth, and her mouth went like this. And she looked at me with a look that I knew very, very well. It was that implacable look. It was all mom. And she was like, "I'm not eating. I'm done." And it just shocked me to pieces, but I knew she was probably making a good choice because this was a horrible way to live. And there wasn't really any future at this point. She really had, a serious problem. But I was like, what do I do? And so we finally decided that we would let her have food right next to her all the time so she could always choose to eat whenever she wanted. And and we left it at that because I didn't want her hooked up to tubes in a hospital. And so she didn't eat again. She maintained that decision 100%. And over a number of weeks, when finally she was down to about 75 pounds. And one night I went there and I just knew my mother wasn't going to make it that night, wasn't going to make it through the night. And it was a Friday night and it was 5:30. And 2 hours later, I was supposed to be at a concert and at the Santa Barbara County Bowl with my fiance and my best friend for my birthday to see Joan Baez sing. And I was like, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to stay with my mom. She's dying. And she's having the most peaceful death because she wasn't hungry anymore. She was sleeping 90% of the time and she was having really happy dreams. I could tell with a big smile on her face and all that. And it was the kind of death she said she always wanted. She said she wanted to go in her sleep without pain. And I think that because of the operation, she was getting that done. And so I was like, I'm not leaving my mom. And all of a sudden, her voice came in my head. She was sound asleep, but her voice, I'd never had this happen. Me, I'm taking care of myself. You, you go take care of yourself. Go listen to the music. Just like that. And that's exactly how mom was. It couldn't have been more mom. Only I'd never had a voice in my head before besides my own, but it was hers. And yet she was sound asleep. She didn't look like anything was happening. And I was like, my mother had just told me to go listen to the music. And I was like, I don't want to go, but if she's telling me to go, I probably ought to go. So I ended up going, and it was very hard, really hard. And I went with my fiance and my best friend, and we were listening to Joan Baez. It was a beautiful night. The stars were out all around us. It was just beautiful. And Joan Baez was singing, and she was that was just absolutely gorgeous. And all I could think of was my mom, that what she was going through right now. And all of a sudden, Joan started singing Forever Young. God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. And just as she saying that, it was like a thunderbolt went through my whole body. And I fell off my chair and I fell onto the ground and I was screaming and screaming because I knew my mom had just died. And I was a disaster. And they had to take me out because I was causing a huge problem. And they took me back home. And when I got home, there was the phone message. My mother had died exactly when I felt that thunderbolt go through me. Years later, I was able to talk to Joan Baez when she was here in Santa Barbara again. And I told her, I told her what happened. I said, that last time you were here was the night my mother died, and while I was in the audience, and when you sang Forever Young, it felt like my mother was singing that song directly to me. And she grabbed me by the shoulders and she pulled me close and she whispered in my ear, she said, she was. And then we said goodbye, and I was just like, Joan Baez said my mother was singing directly to me. And I believe it. I absolutely believe it. And I believe that the message is that when there's love, there's not a second or an inch between us, ever, ever. And if you look for it, you will see it. Anyway, God bless you and have a great life.